Hello everyone and welcome to our channel, God, Life, Us. We are just getting started, and in our upcoming videos, we will be going through some of the most basic questions that come to anyone's mind when they are trying to figure out their life, their purpose on earth, how to know the truth about our existence, how to know the right way of life, religion, and so much more. Today we look into the very first question. Does God exist?
People usually ask this question from the perspective of scientific evidence, because they want some kind of proof, and science seems to be the way. While that may not be the only way, it is not only reasonable, but actually a very good method. We just have to pay attention to what we are seeing and be honest about what we find. We can go through all the scientific evidence one by one, but that's just going to be way too much, and depending on your own scientific knowledge and understanding, you may find it difficult to make sense of. You can find videos on that easily elsewhere anyways. So we are going to take a different approach. We are going to present to you what people who actually discovered those evidences thought about it. That is, let's take the scientific opinion from some of the most brilliant scientists to have ever existed themselves.
So nowadays we are led to believe that even thinking about the possibility of God existing and having been the creator of everything in the universe, everything around us and within ourselves, is just a ridiculous and non-scientific notion. If you're a person who thinks like that, then you're primitive and have not been exposed to the mind-opening ideas of the modern times and are basically living in the Dark Ages. But here is something that might surprise you. The people of science who brought us the most fundamental discoveries, giving us the laws and principles behind everything going on around us. People like Isaac Newton, Galileo, Michael Faraday, James Clerk Maxwell, Erwin Schrödinger, Albert Einstein, and many, many others, not only believed in God but actually considered it a very obvious and most fundamental scientific fact. An observation without which nothing would make sense. These individuals brought us the breakthroughs of the past centuries on which all our science and technological advances of today are based on. Whether it is discoveries in the area of physics or chemistry or mathematics or inventions such as radios, mobile phones, satellites, and more, they brought to light the fundamentals and principles of the very functioning of the universe at every scale we know of, whether it be macro such as the solar system and galaxies, micro such as within atoms, or quantum which works underneath the very fabric of space-time itself. They discovered and predicted phenomenon that they could not even observe, like black holes and gravitational waves, because there were no equipment like today or facilities like the ones we have today, just using mostly pen, paper, and mathematics. In fact, facilities and equipment is still being built to find and observe those predicted phenomenon. And scientists of today still struggle to come up with anything even remotely close to their contributions, even with all the resources that they have available to them now.
Newton once said this most beautiful system of the sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being. Einstein said science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind. Even Charles Darwin, whose observations are today taught to us in such a twisted manner to make us disbelieve in God, actually said the impossibility of conceiving that this grand and wondrous universe, with our conscious selves, arose through chance, seems to me the chief argument for the existence of God. That is, it is the most innate feeling that is coded hard within ourselves to recognize and attribute the universe to God. People like Newton and Einstein and others appreciated what they were seeing in their data, observations, and calculations. The beauty and complexity of it. What it was pointing to. They were honest about their opinions and conclusions. Whether it is an electron around a nucleus in an atom or a planet orbiting around the sun in a solar system. Or when they saw the galaxies. Or when they discovered forces that are binding things together. Or what is making things come together or move far away from each other. How the universe is expanding its boundaries. Or how the laws of the universe are same whether you have a galaxy at one point in space and another different galaxy hundreds of thousands or even billions of light years away. It's not like that if it is in a different region of space, then maybe things happen differently over there and now those galaxies, those planets, or those solar systems are following different set of laws and physics, because it all came from nothing and randomness.
No. They saw the consistencies, orderly conduct throughout the universe, delicate and complex, and awe-inspiring. Everywhere in the design, creation, sustenance, and running of it all. And they were honest about what they were seeing. Science and scientists have discovered and shown us repeating designs and patterns and even fixed mathematical numbers and ratios that are repeated. For example, the golden ratio, the ratio of pi, repeating patterns such as fractals, and you know the pattern that you see in the flowers, the spirals, and that you see in the beehive. So many more. Patterns repeating over and over at different scales.
On the other hand, you have the modern-day scientists, and they are telling us that if you really want to do serious science, then you have to get rid of the idea that there can be a God. Because until you have that idea in your mind, you cannot progress, because then your mind is corrupted and biased to look at things objectively. Here's the bummer. A lot of these people who are appearing in the media, on television, on YouTube and podcasts, who are basically celebrity scientists and have been made the face of science on media for us, and deny the notion of God, these are the people who have failed to make contributions to science anywhere remotely close to these gentlemen and women of the past. In a recorded video lecture, one of the famous physicists nowadays states himself that since the time around 1940s or 50s or so, essentially since around the time of Einstein and other contemporaries of his, we really have been stuck in the domain of physics, and we really have not been able to make any or much progress.
It is so ironic that these people who think that they have the right approach to science and they believe that we have to get rid of the idea and concept of God are the people who are stuck in science. And the people who actually believed in God are the ones who contributed to science massively and to our understanding of the universe at every level. These celebrity scientists are pretty eloquent in their speech, and because of that we expect that everything that these people are telling us must be true, and we just respect them. Except that, while they are very smart people, they are nowhere, absolutely nowhere, close to scientists that have made the huge and fundamental contributions as we mentioned earlier. And they are not doing science as much as they are actually explaining science that was done so many decades ago, and by their own admission they have not been able to progress from those leaps that were made in those times. And yet, somehow they tell us that the way to look at science is to have a non-godly approach towards it, and that if you have a godly approach towards science or life in general, then you are an ignorant person.
No. The fact is clear, from true giants of science themselves. There is God. He is one. And we know that because all the designs, laws, and principles in the universe at all levels are identical. It is the same creator repeating the same patterns in different things, at different scales. He left us these great signs as evidence to draw our attention to him.
In the words of Einstein himself, my religion consists of a humble admiration of the illimitable superior spirit who reveals himself in the slight details we are able to perceive with our frail and feeble mind. So really the debate of whether the God exists or not hasn't come from whether there is any lack of scientific evidence. It's quite the opposite, actually. All the people who have actually looked into the data, observations of science, of nature at any level, have been always convinced that it is coming from someone, and that someone is the creator, the designer, and we call that in religious terms God. It is as simple to understand as that you cannot have a building that you sit in and then say that I'm sitting here, but I'm pretty sure it just made itself out or through random favorable events, and nobody really actually built it. There was no builder. That would be the ridiculous notion. Not the notion that yes, obviously there must have been a builder. The scientists of today may be afraid of consequences if they speak of an opinion that is not popular or that is not approved by the government or funding agencies, and we will talk about that with examples of such pressures and influences in our other videos. But the scientific evidence itself and opinions of true giants of science makes us realize that yes, there is a God, a one true God. So it is up to us to pay attention, listen, read, and figure out what that God wants from us. And how to do just that is something we will discuss in our upcoming videos. So do subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss on any of the content. And don't hesitate to send us your feedback or the toughest questions you might have in your mind to our email.